नमस्कार, स्वागत है आपका जनगणमन 24/7 पर, जो कि मेरा यूट्यूब चैनल है। आप उसे लाइक करें, सब्सक्राइब करें। अगस्त के महीने में राहुल गांधी ने वोट चोरी का खुलासा किया था। उन्होंने एक एटम बॉम्ब फोड़ा था, अगर आपको याद हो, जिसमें कि बहुत सारा वोटर फ्रॉड उन्होंने बताया कि किस तरीके से कर्नाटका की एक कंस्टिट्यूएंसी में किस तरीके से वोट चोरी हुई थी। राहुल गांधी की तर्ज पर 2 महीने बाद आदित्य ठाकरे ने अपनी कंस्टिट्यूएंसी यानी कि वर्ली जो उनकी कंस्टिट्यूएंसी है, वहां पर वोटर फ्रॉड दर्शाया है। अब एक टेलीग्राफ की स्टोरी है। टेलीग्राफ की स्टोरी आपको मैं दिखाना चाहूंगी। एंड इफ यू लुक एट दैट स्टोरी वेरी केयरफुली, इट सेज दैट आदित्य ठाकरे क्लेम्स 19,333 fake voters in Worli. Fadnavis calls him Maharashtra's Pappu. Now, what has happened is, I'll exactly tell you that Shiv Sena UBT Worli Aditya Thackeray claims to have unearthed 19,333 suspicious voters in his constituency, taking a cue from the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi. Making a presentation on Monday in his constituency, Aditya said that the Election Commission is not listening to the opposition's charges. Now, Aditya Thackeray was addressing his party workers just ahead of the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation elections, and he was addressing the party workers to get ready to tackle the voter fraud. And that's where he was making this presentation, and he cited the case of his own constituency, that is Worli. Now, what exactly has he said? EC has allowed mass rigging in elections by simply not performing its duty to purify the voter list. That's point number one. Then he says we exposed the voter fraud in Worli, where we found 19,333 voter anomalies in our post-election study. If this was the case in my constituency, imagine the vote fraud done by those in the current government across the state. He was addressing the party workers, and he said that this is not an error but fraud. And the battle will begin when the parties get the draft electoral rolls, he said, while urging the party workers to thoroughly study the voters list in each ward ahead of the high stakes BMC elections. Now take a look at the tweet which he has written. Let's put out the tweet of Aditya Thackeray. Yes, we have been saying constantly elections in India haven't been held in a free and fair way by the Election Commission of India. Election Commission has allowed mass rigging in elections by simply not performing its duty to purify the voter lists. Yesterday, we exposed the voter fraud in Worli, where we found 19,333 voter anomalies in our post-election study. If this was the case in my constituency, imagine the vote fraud done by those in the current government across the state. I have urged our office bearers to look into the voter lists in detail, identify the anomalies, and raise objections. Now, beyond this tweet, now what are the details? It's exactly the same modus operandi what Rahul Gandhi had pointed out 2 months ago. Now, Aditya said that a study of the electoral rolls in Worli revealed duplicate entries, mismatched names, and electors without photos. This is exactly what Rahul Gandhi had pointed out. The election results in last year's Maharashtra Assembly polls, in which the Shiv Sena UBT, NCP, Sharad Pawar, and Congress faced a rout, had prompted Rahul Gandhi to launch an internal probe on alleged electoral malpractices, for which he has blamed the BJP and the Central Poll Panel. Now, Rahul, if you remember, had claimed that there were huge numbers of additions in the voter list between the Lok Sabha of 2024, when the Congress and its alliance partners in the Mahavikas Aghadi had performed well, and assembly polls held later in the same year. Now, Congress's demand from the Election Commission to be provided with a copy of the electoral rolls prepared both before the elections was also turned down. Shiv Sena UBT leader said that the Worli Assembly segment had 252,970 voters during the Lok Sabha polls held in May 2024. And this number, if you look at the graphics, this number rose to 263,352 voters in the Vidhan Sabha polls in November, which saw an increase of 16,043 votes, while 5,661 voter names were deleted. Now, Aditya had won Worli seat in 2019 on the unified Shiv Sena symbol by a margin of 67,427 votes. And 5 years later, his margin dropped to 8,801. He cited an example of one Narhari Kulkarni. Now, if you show the pictures, then it would become clear as to what he's talking about. He cited an example of one Narhari Kulkarni whose name was deleted during the Lok Sabha polls because the person died, but the same person's name figured during the assembly polls with a different epic number, that is the electoral photo identity card number. So a new registration was done. Now this person is not in the voters list, and this was done on purpose. This is what Aditya Thackeray pointed out. He also claimed that there are 502 voters whose fathers, relatives' names, and the voter's name is the same. Can you imagine? It's not one or two, but 502 voters whose fathers and relatives' names and the voter's name is the same. Then again, he pointed out that there are 720 voters with their father's name and surname. Gender mismatch was found in 643 voters, while there are 28 such voters who do not have epic numbers. He said, adding that there are no photographs in the voters list, while in some cases, language other than English and Marathi has been used in the voters list. So you can imagine the scale of fraud again. Then Aditya said that 214 households in Worli have 3,355 voters. He further said that 1,200 names were deleted after the Vidhan Sabha polls in Worli without any intimation to the voters. Now, this presentation obviously was made to the party workers. He was asking the party workers to get ready for the Brihan Mumbai municipal polls. But it seems that the chief minister of Maharashtra didn't take this lightly, and he took a dig at Aditya Thackeray, and he slammed the report, saying that he should not try to become Maharashtra's Pappu. Obviously, the dig is at Aditya Thackeray that he's trying to copy Rahul Gandhi. And I'm going to quote exactly what Fadnavis said. I know Aditya and didn't expect him to do Pappugiri. His presentation yesterday was a replica of what Congress MP Rahul Gandhi had done earlier. Aditya shouldn't try to become Maharashtra's Pappu. All that the opposition is doing is cover firing. This is what Devendra Fadnavis had to say. And he also said that they know defeat is imminent and people are not with them. Their conduct is a mockery of democracy, he told the reporters after the weekly cabinet meeting. Now, just to give you a little lowdown of the background of what Rahul Gandhi had said, in August, Rahul had in a news conference given a presentation on the voter roll data from one constituency, that was Mahadevapura, under Bangalore Central Lok Sabha constituency, to present what he claimed was a foolproof evidence of electoral roll manipulation, which both the Election Commission and the BJP have denied consistently. So, what has happened now? The special intensive revision of the electoral rolls is not scheduled to take place in Maharashtra during phase 2 of the process, though Fadnavis has demanded the same. So, what started with Mahadevapura, then Rahul Gandhi came out with the voter fraud in Alandh. Now it's coming out that there were two other constituencies in Kalburgi as well, where this kind of a voter fraud took place. And now it's Aditya Thackeray who's done the presentation, and he's pointed out how the voter names have been deleted and how the voter fraud has been done in his constituency. So imagine if Rahul Gandhi has inspired Aditya Thackeray to reveal this, whatever the political compulsions are. Obviously, the political compulsion is the BMC elections. But imagine if UP elections are round the corner, and if Akhilesh does the same thing, in West Bengal, Mamta does the same thing, then you can imagine how the voter fraud, the scope of this voter fraud will expand, and the scope of the expose will also expand, because all the parties will say the same thing, that the voter fraud has happened on such a huge scale. And Election Commission will increasingly find it difficult to convince the people, and people would readily believe as to what the opposition leaders are saying. Now, what Fadnavis pointed out, that Aditya Thackeray or the opposition parties are just doing cover firing, and they have nothing concrete. They know that they are losing the elections, and which is why they are taking an alibi. But one should not forget that Election Commission hasn't given any concrete answers to the voter fraud. In fact, they have gone ahead and announced a second phase of SIR, given the fact that The SIR case is pending in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is also allegedly trying to protect the Election Commission because no hard questions are asked of the Election Commission. So you can imagine that without addressing the basic fundamental issues around the around the vote theft, around the vote fraud, no questions have been answered, and SIR 2.0 has been rolled out. So, Aditya Thackeray, first it was Rahul Gandhi, starting with Mahadevapura, Aland, then Kalburgi, various exposes which have been done on the ground around the SIR. All these issues are now piling up, with Aditya Thackeray being the first leader after Rahul Gandhi to make an expose from his party. Now, will Aditya Thackeray inspire other opposition leaders? What about Mamta Banerjee? What about Akhilesh? What about MK Stalin? If they begin to do these kind of exposes, where will Election Commission go? Will they bury their head under the sand? Will they answer the questions, or will they vacate the Election Commission office and run away? I have interviewed a couple of election data scientists and the people who have been working very closely around the issue of vote theft, and they have said that Election Commission will in the days to come become irrelevant because they are on a self-destruct mode, including the Supreme Court, because if the Supreme Court is not answering these basic questions, if they are not asking hard questions from the Election Commission, even their position gets untenable. They will lose relevance, and so will the Election Commission. So let's see what happens around this narrative of the vote theft. Does it gain prominence? What happens? Can it be converted into a big movement on the streets? We'll have to wait and watch. But I'll look forward to your feedback on this particular video. Thank you so much for joining on Janagaraman 24/7.